Welcome to True Culture,
Building Success from Within, the podcast where we uncover the real strategies behind building teams that thrive and workplaces that people admire and are proud to be part of. I'm your host, Robert Cook, CEO of True Colors International. And with decades of experience in leadership, consulting, and cultural transformation, I will bring you real stories and practical tools to help you shape the culture you've always wanted. Let's get started.
I'm your host, Robert Cook of True Colors. Today, I'm really excited to have a chat with Reid Walsh. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer at NeoGov, which is a really interesting company, a two-sided company. It's AI-enabled government HR software and more, but we're going to have a good conversation, a lengthy conversation. I really want to know your background, and then we're going to talk about culture. But prior to joining, let me give a little background here. Prior to joining NeoGov, Reid serves as Deputy Secretary of Human Resources and Management for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a big organization, helping to lead workforce information and transformation initiatives for more than 80,000 people. So she's got a background of public broadcasting, I think PBS for a while, government operations, HR leadership, community service. You've done it all. So what I saw when I read your whole bio, passionate about building systems and cultures that help people thrive. So that's why you are here. So thank you, and thanks for joining us.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me, Robert.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I always love to get a little context and get a little background, because your background is incredibly storied, multi-layered, and impressive. So that will generate your credibility for what and your views on culture. So let's talk about that. So you've had a great background. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you arrived at where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So a large part of my journey started off at public broadcasting service, working in the media side of the world. I was a communication major in college, and so found my way to public broadcasting after I graduated from college. Did a little stint of year volunteer AmeriCorps service in there. So always have been a servant-oriented person. Found my way to PBS, and really just because I was a college kid with a major in comms and looking for a good organization to land, and loved the culture at PBS. And ended up understanding what I wanted more was to be in operations and look at how we were doing things and how we were organizing internally and how do we accomplish these major tasks within the organization. So wound my way really to a business affairs position where I was helping put the deals together for a lot of the acquisitions and ongoing series we did at PBS. Think Downton Abbey, NewsHour. Didn't work on the kids side as much, but certainly saw launching a lot of neat shows there. So it was a great organization. But after 12 years in the DC area, decided I wanted to raise my family in Pennsylvania, where I currently live. I moved back here. A family friend of mine was running for governor and said, would you come work in my campaign office like 20 hours a week? I said, great. I had two very young children. He didn't know what he needed in terms of operations, and I didn't know how much I would love working on a campaign. I lived in DC for 12 years, never really touched politics, and then came back and was a director of operations for his gubernatorial campaign in Pennsylvania, and wound my way into his administration. Again, knowing I really felt passionately about operations, I found my way to HR and served 7.5 years as the human resources head for Pennsylvania. And it was one of the bigger honors of my career.
Is that an easy job? Just coming out of government, you've got that respect of taking big pictures, being top down, and they needed your skill set. So it's an impressive jump. Was there a signature moment that sort of said, this is what I got to do, this is where I got to go? Or is that just a slow progression that you learned, an opportunity availed itself?
Yeah, it was. I have an interesting story about how I got into government with my family friend running for governor, and then another one when I decided to leave government and come to NeoGov. Yeah. So I was a client using the software in Pennsylvania, but like you said, I was the head of a 900-person HR organization for 80,000 employees. Yeah. So really my focus on was what is the IT roadmap? What is the legislation in our way? How do we work with that vast body of congressional folks to make sure that we're doing really great hiring and we're attracting people to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to see us as a viable and an employer where they really want to be. So a lot of big picture work, a lot of big systems, big picture, big movements, a lot of unions. We had 21 unions. So yeah, really big. And my governor was leaving office and another governor was coming in. And so I was sort of a cross point in my intersection in my career. And out of the blue, I got a call from the CEO of NeoGov, who I had met along my journeys. We'd done some presentations together, some beta testing for new things they were putting out. That's why you should always say yes to partnerships like that. And he said, do you want to come be my head of HR? I really need a people person. And I said, yeah, let's go. He sent me the offer letter, and that was it. Then I found my winging out to Utah, which is where one of our major offices is, and starting with NeoGov. And now I've been here for about 3.5 years.
How long were you with the government in Pennsylvania?
8 years.
So that's interesting. That's a long time to work in government. You must be a very patient, capable person. But let's talk about that because that's interesting. How do you affect culture in a government organization? You just tend to think personally, locally. I've watched our DMV, my local DMV, completely transform itself. It's now a pleasure to go to my
Mhm.
and that was never the case at most DMVs. How do you go about changing the culture in a giant government organization like that?
I think
What do you walk into, and then what needs to be done? How'd you go about it?
Yeah, and I think you hit something, a nail on the head, and a point that I always like to drive home. So I worked at an organization that did both HR and IT
Mm.
for internal government, right? We also had a piece of continuity of government. So something happened, or leading during COVID, which we did, we sent 26,000 people home and working in about a week to keep the government running. So but it is a really interesting thing where you focus on big projects, and that partnership with IT is huge because I guarantee you the experience that you're having in your DMV right now is because they have better systems to use. They're easier for the employee. They're easier to be trained on. They're probably easier to navigate. So the employee's having a better experience. You can attract more employees when you have modern technology, and then you have a good experience. So it really was looking at what are we doing? What are these massive systems that we're trying to harness internally for the effort of what is that citizen facing experience with us? And that's really what government boils down to. There's obviously a lot of politics, a lot of things like that, but it is a huge combination of large IT projects and then how does HR fold into those and sometimes identify them so that people can have a good experience on the other end.
I would imagine that was easy to fix. So it's systems, because I noticed in a lot of your background, it's a lot of systems. Is that
Yep.
something you had to learn yourself, or you a top-down person? You said, this is how we got to approach it. We got to fix the big picture.
I did a lot of listening and a lot of learning, right? Because I came in from off the street into government, and I feel really lucky to have made that transition. But I think, like in any organization, you identify the people that you feel like they just make sense. They have some proven track records. So I had amazing people that I worked with, but developing those relationships with other leaders, other agencies was huge. Because if you think about it, you have your governor, and then you have 26 other bosses. You have 26 agency heads, and they have a really important job to do. They need to keep the roads safe. They need to make sure the water is working. They need to make sure the parks are operating safely. They have huge jobs, and your job is to support them. So if you don't focus on those relationships and listen, really listen to what they need, you're not going to be successful in your job because we were a facilitator. We were an enabler of the things they needed to do. So if they needed to quickly hire X many people to do bird inspections during a bird flu pandemic, then you help them do that. So there's a lot of what's the most impactful thing you can do for that person in this moment and how do you help them achieve it? And IT and HR are huge enablers of that.
Yeah, I would argue that HR is getting redefined, and you're talking about exactly like that. In my early career world, what are my benefits and am I in trouble type thing. And HR is expanded so much.
Absolutely. So when Shane, our CEO of NeoGov, called me and said, do you want to come work here? And I was kind of like, why? Why me? When it's like, because I need a people person and I need a culture person. He knew if there was any gaps in my knowledge between state government processes and state government rules and regulations and how the private sector worked, that I would figure those out. I would navigate those, right? They're not a mystery. But if you really want to have impact, if you really want to make change, you have to be able to handle culture. You have to have that instinct to identify what your blockers are, and you have to have desire and the how about what are those levers you want to push and pull. What's the most important thing to the business? Where do you focus and measure the results? And that's why he brought me on, because he knew that all that stuff would come. We would do the policies, we would do the payroll. Don't worry, you're going to have benefits. I pay a lot of attention to that stuff because that's part of culture. But what's not working and how do you fix it? Or what is working and how do you elevate it?
When you walked into NeoGov, what was the culture? How would you describe the culture?
Yeah, it was a little fragmented. You mentioned before that we had two sides of the business. So we have government software, NeoGov, where we sell HR products into state, municipal, local leaders. And then we had just acquired a large business called Power DMS, which sells software into police forces. So really a huge growth, like pretty much almost doubled our size to bring those two entities together, but it hadn't quite melded. So I really needed to figure that out. We were probably 2.5 years into that acquisition, and you still felt a little bit of a fractured environment, a little bit of failure when it came to some of the ways that was done. And we needed to look, act, and believe that we were one organization and one productive organization that could use our collective tools to sell into our buyers. So culture and lack of fragmentation was huge. That was the number one focus when I came in. The other thing we were dealing with, Robert, was we had just really come off COVID. So if you think about all that change that happened during COVID, so really we are an LA-based company with people coming into the office. So one, we had this large acquisition that made us more nationwide than ever. We really went away from having that hub in LA. It was really an office that was used like at that point when I came in every other Tuesday. It's still like that. Every other Tuesday, people were coming into the office. So things had changed a lot in terms of how we were actually operating, but I don't know if what we were doing in practice really had caught up to the changes that had physically and realistically occurred within the company. So I'll give you an example. So when I came in, again, large presence remotely. We have employees in Utah and employees in LA, but our employee base had changed. But we were still walking and talking like we were an in-person company in LA when that wasn't really the experience of most of the employees in the company. They were remote. So we were still having a big holiday party in LA. And some people were invited and they could fly in, others weren't. And it just was not reflective of the employee population. So when I came in, I said, can I see the budget? How much does that party cost? Let's do something different. So we started a holiday raffle. So everything was remote. So whatever that budget was, we just reallocated to walk and talk and act differently amongst our employees. This is no additional cost. In fact, it was a little bit less. And we made a big deal out of it. Had an absolute blast. Had our leaders do some like fun, like questions on our internal chat. So they would post a video saying, hi, I'm I'm the leader of operations and my first job out of school was X. And with my first paycheck, I bought this. And they would tell their own story. And then they would invite people to come in the chat and tell their own story. But first they had to say who they are, where they worked, where they lived, if they wanted to disclose it, and what was their favorite thing about the company. I cannot believe this took off like wildfire. Like the executives were awesome. They were totally into it. I opened up the channel so that all employees could reply. People were reading each other's messages. And it was just one of those things that people wanted to be seen and heard. And so we weren't really acting like we were operating. And so we just started to make these shifts to be more conscientious and more intentional about how we were seeing and hearing people, because the leader's mindset hadn't changed from that in-person office in LA to we have 700 employees throughout the US. So little things like that. And people loved it. They had a blast. Obviously, some people got raffle prizes, and that was really fun. And we continued that culture of how do we see and hear people in a different way than we did before? So one of the things that became really important was our communication channels. How were we communicating to people? What kind of content were we putting out there? And how did we engage them so they could be seen and heard? So continuing just like fun things we could do with them. And that really made a big difference.
What percentage were working remote?
Let's see, about 65% working remote.
Wow, that's hard to keep a culture, right? It's hard to keep communication. What were the communication channels you decided to use? Were you using Slack, email? What were you guys using?
Yeah, so, we were using Slack. We ended up coalescing on our GChat platform. So it's called our news and announcements channel, but it was really putting content in there that people wanted to see And then when you wanted to engage them, doing things where they could be seen and heard. This past year, we celebrated our 25th anniversary and we did a whole shebang, but most of it was just free because we did things that made employees feel engaged. And they were funny and they were silly. We did an employee doppelganger contest, like who's your lookalike? Of course, I made a bunch for the executive staff and submitted them for them, which were supposed to be funny, and people loved that. We did a baking contest where you had to make a 25th anniversary cake for us, and we did little prizes here and there for it, but that really wasn't it. People just wanted to show you their skills and or wanted to show you who they were and what they're all about. And those sort of things really engage. But we did a cute pet contest once. That stuff is free. That stuff is just who are you? How do you operate? How do you live? It allows people to get to know each other too, because we always said, tell us what you love working about NeoGov as you come into this chat channel and reply. We did a little TikTok dance contest over Christmas to a holiday song.
There's no shame.
Yeah, and my CEO did it with his daughters and his wife, and people loved it. So there's a lot of that free goodwill you can do if you just be intentional about it. But there are other really more formal and important channels. So looking at our town halls. So when I first came in, our town halls were very sales numbers oriented. We were doing some great things. We had good values. We had a channel or a forum where people could shout out their colleagues for demonstrating our values, which was great. But then we did nothing with it. So it just sat there. So when I came in, I said, I really think we should use this content and just, can I come on the town hall? And at the top of it, I'm just going to acknowledge certain instances of people that were shouted out. And I tried to normally make them map back to something that we were very conscientiously working on. So if we were really trying to improve our customer service and we were leaning into our agentic AI and building the files for it, I would maybe pick a shout out that highlighted that particular company initiative. So I would just go through them and pick out the ones that I thought were interesting. And then I would post the rest to the company channel, and people loved it. And we even got more uptake on that. It's really about that. Again, the message is like over and over again. People want to be seen. They want to be heard. And especially if they're doing good things for the company. It's hard to recognize everybody's work all the time. But if you just work towards a little bit of intention, it goes a really long way.
I applaud all the ideas. I'm sure our listeners will love a lot of those ideas. It's amazing how much talent usually lies right in our own team, right? You don't need to go outside.
Unreal. And this holiday, this is our third year doing the holiday raffle. And instead of having the leaders ask questions, I actually went out to the employees because I was just getting dry with questions. I was like not finding myself to be creative nor clever anymore with things I was asking. So I sourced them from the employees, and then they did their videos. And hey, I'm so-and-so, I work in sales for the company. What were your top 3 songs on your Spotify rap list? And people just went crazy doing that. And then we made the NeoGov mix of all of our top songs. It was a blast.
That's fun. Did you ever get that LA party back going, or you didn't need to?
We still want people to get together when they can. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the other thing that we did, and this is like a part where operations and culture come together, we weren't meeting in person enough, right? So the teams weren't getting together in person as much as they should be, especially because we have been a company that's tremendous, that's experienced a tremendous amount of growth, right? So when you're doing that much growth, you're just busier, you have more moving parts, and you really need to have more of a collegial relationship. So one of the things that we really emphasized, and I really push with our leaders, I'm like, oh, where are you guys meeting in person? We don't meet in person. Oh, why? Did you know that marketing meets in person? We should all just do in-person meetings. So it became more of a culture of, oh, when is your in-person meeting? It's not just sales that's having that big in-person kickoff meeting in the beginning of the year, and they do awards. Now our customer operations group does it. So they also do a in-person meeting where they do a big award ceremony and people get dressed up. And there's no reason to take strong parts of the company who really emphasize culture and to say, they're doing more for their employees. Don't just have the other people do it too. And it's amazing how much that has taken off, this culture of being intentional about getting together more for meetings and making sure that the major areas of the company do that at least once a year, where they do team building, talking about roadblocks, all the things that they should be talking about, some real problem solving, but also just sitting around together and going to a baseball game or doing bowling or whatever it is. So that was really weak and it was inconsistent, right? And it wasn't fair to the employees that one area of the company had that because their leader was really believing in it and planning it. So you may have to, as HR, really push some of the other leaders to do that, but show them the path, right? Most people aren't resistant. They're just like, where do I start? And you're like, I'll help. Let's start. Here's an agenda. Let's adopt it for you. So, seeing that and seeing your leaders too, and knowing where they need the support is just a critical part of that culture building, because not all the leaders are going to be alike. Naturally, most likely your sales team is going to be a little bit more gather in person raw than your R&D team, right? But now our R&D team does in-person conferences. I don't think they're quite doing the awards ceremony with the red carpet yet, but maybe one day.
So it sounds like engagement went up a lot. Did you do any sort of internal pulse surveys or engagement surveys or
Yeah,
360s, or what the measurement tools you use to see where people?
we did. I like 360s. I don't love 360s. I feel like sometimes 360s are really important when you're trying to solve problems and you just can't quite get your head around what's going on. I think they're good tools. But for me, when I'm doing overall culture engagement, I do think it's that long tail of what your ENPS survey looks like. So we have a yearly ENPS survey. So that really gives me the benchmark. And the other thing that I did when I came in, the ENPS had been going on for a few years, but it was just that one question, which I get. That's the spirit and intent of ENPS. But you lose a lot when you have people that are captive audience answering this one question that they really want to give their answer to. You have to ask them why. What was your major reason for that score? Say more, right? In that say more area where you give them some open text. And we all know now being able to go through open text is a very easy job with the assistance of AI. So that's not something that should hold you back as an HR leader anymore. We've really been doing that. And then I report out those scores by department, by area, give a really extensive report to the leaders, and we address the areas where we see issues. So if we're seeing that our overall score is a 55, but we have an area that's a 26, maybe a pulse survey is going to be good there. Or if we have an area that's going through a major change, we've done a ton of pulse surveys and really addressed and acknowledged where we had issues, address it directly, be really frank, make a plan, because silence is your biggest enemy sometimes when it comes to those types of things. So pulse surveys are my tactical things when you really need to get in there and lift up some rocks.
Yeah.
And that NPS score just tells you how you're doing. You can't not measure that. Luckily, I've seen mine go like this. I'm hoping this year it stays the same.
Raffles all the time. I always see that we do well, but you never know. That's the trick. People work for raises, praises, and a lot more, right? You got to figure it out.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, we haven't seen True Colors. We do all sorts of assessments, and we've seen that 360 is very much gone quiet in most organizations' desire for that. I don't know if it was a real 80s, 90s thing, but it used to be big, but not so much anymore.
I think you're leaning into a really important point. Again, I do think there's a place for it, but what I think more is I really just want to address how we talk to each other. And when we did start a leadership academy, that was one of the other culture things that we did. Selecting leaders, bringing them in for in-person retreats together, cross-departmentally. A lot of bonding goes on cross-departmentally. And that was a really big deal. And we focused a lot on what's your communication style? How do you communicate? Making them respond to different communicators in the room, doing some really tactical, practical exercises that are uncomfortable, but I think really in a safe space with their leaders, so impactful. So to a certain degree, the 360s, I felt like, I don't know, that I feel like they could be weaponized sometimes. I'm not quite sure, right? I just didn't have a real sense that they were making an impact. I didn't want to waste my time on something that wasn't making an impact. So I think those putting a mirror on yourself, really what kind of communicator am I? And what kind of communicators are my team? So when we do leadership training, our team also takes the communication style in test, if that's what you want to call it. So they can understand better who their leaders are. And we bring them into the academies. They do exercises with people on their staff as they're going through this leadership academy. It's much more impactful that way because it's real. It's not formative. It is not checking the box. When they are doing those things with their staff who know them really well, it gets real. And that's what moves the needle.
And you touched on it earlier that if you don't do something with the feedback you get, you forget it. People say, I gave you that feedback already. I never heard boo anything from it. So you're very astute to say that, how important that is.
Yeah, you lose credibility if you don't give it back to them. We just did, and I'm sure every company out there is dealing with this, but a big sentiment survey on AI. We are talking so much, as everyone is, about how to be more efficient with AI, how to give better experience for our customers and the product with AI, like you mentioned earlier. We weren't really asking our employees how they were feeling about it, right? And as we did that, again, what we discovered was this desire of ours to democratize AI and have everybody optimizing AI, every task and every level. We weren't doing any of the things
Yeah.
that really examined that and allowed for that. We were resting on the laurels of, oh, look at what our coders are doing, or look at the improvements in product, but we weren't saying, okay, let's sit down with legal and go through all their processes and figure out if there is capability and how. Because we were at this, I think, like oversaturated experimentation place where it felt like it was becoming unproductive. And should I use Chat GPT or should I use Gemini? Should I build a gem or and that and we all had our own philosophy of what was going on. That sentiment survey was huge. It's been really the guidepost for how we're thinking better about tool deployment, training on tools, convergence of tools. And it really started out for me. I just think these leaders think their employees think something different than they do about AI. So it's just this hunch that I had that our culture was a little bit off from what we were saying and what we were doing. And this sentiment survey, led to the formation of an AI governance committee and the major
Right.
tenets of the governance committee. So a lot of success with just asking employees what they think. Sometimes it's gnarly. Sometimes you have to look at it. They're like, okay, but ask them. You learn a lot, and you can actually make an impact.
Yeah, they usually have the answers, right? They usually know where there's trouble are, and they usually lie within. I agree.
Listen, and when it's anonymous, they'll say, I don't know as much about this as I should. And you go, great, we can solve that. That's an easy solve. I'd rather know than not know.
The ones you can't solve are the ones you don't know about. Okay, so you've got two sides of the business. They must have, do they have different cultures? Because they definitely have different businesses. So
Yeah,
let's talk about that. And how do you separate those cultures if they are separate? And is there a mission and a vision of both sides, or is it all of one firm? Talk to me about managing two businesses within one.
sure. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, the mission is the same across all. The mission and the vision is to serve the people that serve the people. So if you look at our software, we're serving police forces who serve our communities. We're serving put the water inspectors in the field to make sure you're drinking safe water. So we really enable people to do a better job at what can be really large and tedious work in government. So we serve the people that serve the people. So that really resonates across both sides of the house. I did not come up with that. I'm not sure who did, but it really speaks to me because I was in that role for 8 years. And it's really something that, regardless if you're on that public safety side or if you're on that HR government side, resonates with you. The cultures are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's about enabling.
Mm.
And what we have done is work very hard to bring those cultures together. So we used to have an implementation team that was completely separate from for the public safety as it was for the HR. Now they're still separate skill sets, they're separate products, but under the same leader. So everybody has the same, I want to say, feeling when they're in that. You don't have a difference of how your leaders interact with you, the things that they provide to you, the training that you may get because you work on a certain product. So that was really important to us, even though they're two distinct products and two distinct SaaS products that we're offering. We really wanted to make sure that all our employees have the same experience as an employee when it comes to all the little things that make them better workers, good content, good technology, good training. So that was really important to us to combine the teams for the sake of leadership to even out that experience.
Yeah.
But it's been a little bit of a road, but honestly, I think it's gone awesome. We hire a lot of people that came from police forces or public safety entities. We hire a lot of people that came from government, and we hire a lot of people that just really believe that these people need good tech to make our world a better and safer place. And we talk about mission a lot.
Is there a different temperament type that serves one side of the business better than the other?
Thought I would see that, but really it's not. I think it's more about credibility and knowledge of the business. So if you are someone who doesn't really understand what it means to be dealing with a certain police issue, you may not have as much credibility when you come to the table. So I really think it's about hiring knowledgeable people that understand the business. And that's what really makes a difference as opposed to temperament. And also someone who could help them. I've been there, I built the business case. I can help you build the business case for what you need to do. Let's talk about it. Let's tease that out because I've been in your seat. That's a big part of our imprint in terms of the people that we hire to support our customers.
You got trends in the workforce that we should watch more closely, or you?
Yeah, I think the one trend is everyone's trying to figure out what does it mean to be hiring AI capable people? Where is it just part of a process and they're going to come into an AI enabled process and they're just going to learn the process like they would anything else? Where are there other parts of the company where you really need someone who's been building agents and they understand, or building product in a different way and what that looks like? So I think a huge partnership between HR and those business leaders to say, all right, let's really talk about this. What exactly are we looking for? What competency level? How are we describing the work differently in our job descriptions? There is a little bit of homework that
Yeah,
needs to be done to get this blueprint down. So I think we're seeing that, a lot of conversations around that. And it really is by area, right? You're not going to talk the same way about hiring someone to do HR operations as you are to build product. You have to go area by area, and it's going to keep evolving, right? Because right now they may say, I need someone really savvy who's already made the change from this technology to this technology. And then in 3 years, it's just the baseline technology and they come in and get trained. So I think it's going to be evolving. So I think you're seeing that in HR. And you mentioned this earlier, even more important that you understand what the business is doing and where it's going. Open those doors, get yourself into those leadership conversations. It's hard in a remote environment. I know. I'm sitting here in Pennsylvania doing HR for a multi-state, 38-state company. You really need to be intentional about staying on top of the needs of your business. It's really important.
yeah, yeah. It's hard with a multi-generational workforce, a hybrid workforce, and then geographically distributed. Crazy. Yeah, I imagine
Yeah.
most everybody's one language, or is your product international?
We have teams in India, we have teams in Croatia, and we have teams in Canada. So yeah, we're international. And when I do things like I spoke about earlier, I have to be intentional and conscientious about making sure I'm doing things that are translatable to everyone. And one example of something really silly is we took our mascot, which is Sparky the bear. He's a bear. And we did this thing called Where's Sparko? And he dressed him up like Waldo. And we said, hey, put him in your environment. And people sent us the coolest pictures of Sparky sitting in the stands in a football game in Croatia or on the beach in India. And it was very cool. But it's difficult. It's difficult to be managing such, even just time zone wise, diverse cultures, and to get everybody into the town halls at the same time. So you have to be really intentional about your partnership and what's your communication channel with your India office, and how do you make sure the leaders there are having everyone watch the town hall and fully understand sort of the culture of what's going on, the CEO updates. And yeah, it's difficult, but it's not hard. It
Right.
just takes attention.
So you sound very intentional. You seem to have lots of good, fun tricks to keep people engaged. So engagement, I imagine, is very high. Systems, we talked about some of the systems you put in. You take a systems attitude in. Is Neo a system? It's an HR system, that side of the business. Is that something we should do a little commercial here for? Tell me how that helps. Is it only for governments? Government
No,
business?
not at all. We do higher education, healthcare, anywhere you have policy, fire departments, correctional institutions. We have a large swath of customers. I boil it down to say it's local government HR, that's the preponderance of our customers, but higher ed is a huge focus of ours, and along with public safety. We serve a lot of different customers, and again, just how can we give you better tech? That is our only goal, to give you better tech so you can do things easier, get home faster. In case you can go as far as cases like you can save the lives not only of internal police officers who may have just gone through something because you're keeping track of their health scores and their engagement, or having them have quick recall on the policies that they're using, or on the HR side, how do you take something like a state government who has to hire everybody, every type of job, maybe except for manufacturing, under one roof, and how do you enable them to do that? It's a tricky business, but someone's got to do it, and it's NeoGov.
Are there standard practices for hiring that you think have worked better for you? I get asked all the time. We need tools, we need practices. So are there standard policies or practices, excuse me, that you use for hiring to try to find the right employees for you?
Yeah, I think it goes to, did we describe the work correctly? Do we know what the soft skills for this job are? Did we ask the right questions? Did we have an intake meeting with the hiring manager that we just took the JD that exists, the job description that exists, and we just put it out there? Or did
Yeah.
we sit down? Did anything change? What about this? Here's your last people who left. Let's walk through this. Why were they a good employee? Did you regret that or did you not regret that leave? Why? Those sorts of questions where the recruiters and the business partners are working together to really do strong intake meetings. So one, you have a good basis for hiring to start with. We're lucky because we get to hire remote. That gives
Yeah.
us a lot more freedom, not in every area of the company, but in a decent amount. That gives us a lot more freedom in finding that right talent. It's hard to get your name out there amongst the noise. I think one of the things that people don't realize is how our name may disguise a little bit how innovative and how tech forward we are. So now I'm working with our R&D team to say, how do we better describe ourselves so people are like, oh my gosh, they can build new product and stand up new product, have a go to market like nobody else. So we're really trying to think about how we specialize when we're doing recruiting for certain areas, how we lean into more of some of this innovation that we're doing, and people who come here and go, you guys are really good. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. And we're like, yep, welcome to the party. How do we tell everybody else? So I think there's a little bit more of trying to get your name out there, especially when you're in an environment where other people are doing layoffs. So you're trying to grab some of that talent. How do you convince them that you're an awesome, innovative place to work as well?
There's a lot to it. Okay. I'm gonna pause. Think where we want to go with this. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you'd like to touch on?
My relationship with the executive staff.
Okay. And how about the other side of the business? Do you want to talk and promote that at all? Or
I think I said it pretty decently when I was talking about the serve the people that serve the people. But if you want me to, I can lean in a little bit how I change the culture of how I work with the executive staff.
yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
It's an easy one from there. So you talked a lot and very impressive how you've really helped, I think, the whole firm be engaged and to connect. How have you worked with the C-suite? How have you worked with the managers to get them involved? It sounds like obviously the top CEO or C-suite that was engaged in the
Mhm.
games, if you will, or the,
Totally.
but talk about communicating up and not just out, and then marrying the two and how they're different.
Yeah. I think I had a challenge when I came in because I was coming from public sector and I had to prove myself as a leader who could support them well in a PE-backed environment with a growth business that was had large goals. We went through a sale recently. So I came in at this critical time where we are heading towards an exit and people really wanted to be well supported. I think to a certain degree, it's pretty simple. Be authentic and listen, solve their problems, listen to, because leaders will tell you all the things they want to do, but really, what's that thing that keeps them up at night? How do you focus on that? And how do you lean into solving that issue that is really bugging them? And sometimes it could be as easy as I just have this one leader I just need to work through this. Or I've had this bad leader and I need to rebuild this organization and they need more support. So you're going to pivot more of your time and attention there because not all area of the companies need you in the same way all the time. Consistent check ins with them and really listening to figure out the thing that's keeping them up at night and do that, solve that. You're going to build that credibility. And so the next time you want to come in and maybe do something that they're not as comfortable with or used to, or they haven't done it before, like a pulse survey, you're going to have some credibility because you solved their other problems. Those relationships are bread and butter.
Are you literally sitting down with each one, or are you sending them? Is that done electronically through surveys and emails?
Yeah, we get together once a month in person. And I feel when I have my in person time, that's really critical. But sometimes it's just sitting back and listening to reoccurring topics in meetings. So the third time I hear it, I go, what's going on there? Should we talk about this? I have an idea, and always coming to them with an idea, even if I'm not totally convinced my idea is what it should be, just them reacting to it helps build it. So acknowledging the issue and coming to with them to say, hey, what do you think about this? That's a lot easier to engage instead of just restating the problem to a really busy executive. They don't need you to restate their problem, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they need a little clarity about what exactly the lever is to fix. but coming to them with, I think I heard this, maybe we could do this. It's pretty simple and it gets the conversation going.
That's a nice message, the way to deliver it. So I like to ask this of everybody, all of our guests, is the HR head, you, at the C-suite level? Are you part of the C-suite? Are you on the board? Has HR has generally risen to people understand that the people matter, leaders understand that people matter, but not always do they get the HR board level seat or a seat at the table of senior management.
I'm very lucky that I have a CEO who values that, but I like to
Right.
think that I maintained my presence because it worked and we were seeing really great things happen to our ENPS and to our retention numbers. So yeah, I have a seat. I didn't earn it, I had it, but I kept it. I made it impactful. And that just allows me to do my job better, I think. And I'm really grateful to be in that position.
That's great. Leads right to the question, how do you measure success with culture? Is it just turnover and engagement? How do you measure these things?
I look a lot at our exit interviews, and we have a big emphasis on exit interviews and reading them and dissecting them and sending them out to our leaders. And when they say, I can't tell you how much HR has improved in the last 3 years, like nothing delights me more. So I do get a lot of joy out of that. We look at our EMPS, we look at just feedback and engagement. Are people still looking at our posts? Are they still coming to the activities that we've set up? Are they writing us and saying, oh, I love that when you did that in the town hall? And if it goes quiet, you go, I know we're busy, but this feels like I'm not engaged with them like I used to. Maybe I need to pivot and do something different. So I think the employees tell you, you need to measure. You need to have year over year measurements. You need to do pulse surveys. But I think just a little bit of ear to the ground goes a long way.
Sounds right. Biggest priorities going forward for you?
Strengthening our business partner relationships. So I feel very strongly about business partners and them being very engaged in the business, understanding the goals, understanding the measures, understanding how they're achieving against those goals. Managers have felt great about having this one business partner they can go to, even just say, hey, what do you think? Someone who they can reach out to for clarity. They don't just have to put a ticket in. Now we're at the size where we can do that. But I've seen great strides setting up that business partner relationship. And that was only possible because we like to keep we're a cost center. We're conscientious of keeping ourselves, I guess, to a certain degree small, but I would say more like efficient. A big part of that was making my operations really shrewd, hiring the right people to do those operational things, which can be very complex. So getting a really good payroll person in, a person that's, really good at those types of operation things, doing the audits and doing that, that was huge to invest in those skills very heavily so that I could free up some of my generalists to focus more on working with the managers and seeing and hearing the people under their umbrella. That's been a huge game changer for us. I'm loving how it's going, and I can't wait to get it even stronger.
Is there anything I was going to ask the age-old wrap-up question is what advice would you give emerging leaders, particularly in HR, who want to create cultures like you've created? It seems fantastic. You've given us a lot. Is there a small little recap or anything we didn't touch on? Tricks of the trade?
Now, yeah, I would just say be very conscientious of the people that you hire. When you have also VPs coming into the business, make yourself a part of the interview process. You definitely want to be a cultural litmus test. And especially if leaders trust you, they're actually going to ask you to engage like that. If you are weak in certain areas, hire for that. So know who you are as a leader. I didn't do payroll in the state. We had 80,000 employees. That was done by a large machine that sat outside my wheelhouse. I really needed a strong payroll person to support. I did benefits when I was in the state, so I felt a little bit more comfortable in that area. So who am I as a leader? Where am I great? Where do I have gaps? And how do I fill those in? It sounds really obvious, but it was really important for me. And I felt a little bit more capable in my job. And I felt a little bit more upward in my job when I hired well.
I like that. You're a walking commercial for True Colors too, where we start with self-awareness. So I love it. So NeoGov, if 5 years from now, what are we looking at? What have you accomplished that you say, wow, that was great?
Oh, 100% having our culture scores go up. Like that's been huge for me, but also new clients, new businesses, new frontiers. We serve a lot of awesome public servants right now, the police
Mhm.
forces and local governments, but there's fire, there's EMS, there's just a ton of people who need good technology to deliver better services, unless people looking at those outlets for careers. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the growth and what it does for HR. We get to add new employees if we grow, and that's really cool and that's really fun. So growth, can't wait, bring it.
How do you find new clients and how can they find you? I know your website, it's right behind you, right?
Absolutely. NeoGov.com, Power DMS is the name of our technology on the police side. Call me, find us on LinkedIn. If you want to come to a company that builds fast, deploys fast, goes to market fast, find us. We are a bunch of athletes doing athletic things. So we welcome anyone who wants to come in and do that and do it with a mission.
I love it. And they don't have to be based in Pennsylvania either. So
Yeah,
that's part of
check
the
us
world.
out.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And Reid, thank you for your insights on leadership, on culture, on creating systems, on creating culture, and telling us your journey. So I appreciate your time and the impact that you're making both in your organizations, of course, and the communities you serve. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Have a great day, everybody. See you again next time.
Thanks for tuning in to True Culture. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and colleagues. For more information about our approach and services at True Colors, visit us at truecolors.intl.com or reach out for a free consultative conversation. And remember, culture isn't just something that happens, it's something you design. See you next time.